Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done already, because this will help me out enormously in growing the channel and being able to produce more videos like this one. This episode will guide you through the issues of Uncanny X-Men published in 1982. Issue 155. This issue picks up where the previous issue left off, namely with Storm, Cyclops and Corsair aboard the Blackbird flying away from the scenery where they had battled the Sea-Tree. Obviously there's a tension brewing, since Scott not only just found out that Corsair, the space pirate and leader of the Starjammers, is his father, but his teammate Storm has known about this, yet swore to Cyclops' lover Jean not to divulge the secret. While Scott and Corsair are having an argument about Corsair's motivations to not return to Earth and his sons, the Blackbird starts to glow and is being transported away, apparently by the Shi'ar Imperial Guard and Shi'ar combat troopers. At that same moment, Professor X and the X-Men materialize next to them. Colossus and Wolverine enter battle mode, but Professor X tells them to calm down. He also finds out from Cyclops' thoughts that Corsair is Scott's father. They are all welcomed by Gladiator of the Shi'ar Imperial Guard and Lord Chancellor Araki and Admiral Samadar. Samadar regards Earthlings as barbarians to Shi'ar standards and is surprised by the respect these Earthlings receive. Araki explains to him why that is. While Professor X tries to calm down his X-Men, we see a display of Wolverine's short fuse several times. Charles demands an audience with Lilandra, the Magistrix or Empress of the Shi'ar Empire, with whom he has a long-distance, galaxy-spanning relationship. Chancellor Araki tells Charles that this is not possible and he'll explain why. In a nearby briefing room, the X-Men see a portrayal of the abduction of Lilandra, just like Corsair had told Cyclops and Storm. Professor X wonders if Lilandra could be dead, which he doubts because of the psychic reported it to have, meaning he would have noticed if she had died. Charles expresses his concerns and asks Araki who, why and where. Wolverine chimes in saying, "Who cares, it's not our problem, it's a Shi'ar problem." He's then being corrected on how it's very much of their problem since the trail leads to Earth. Cyclops asks the Shi'ar what they plan on doing about it, and Araki responds by saying, "Liberate her if she's alive, avenge her if she's not. Corsair will get punished for being a conspirator, and that they will use Xavier to trace her through the bond they have. Once they have, they will send the Imperial Guard and combat troopers to effect her release. Professor Xavier, being the Imperial escort, forbids this course of action, as it will most likely result in Lilandra's death and destruction of lives and property on Earth." Once again, the Admiral expresses his ideas on humans, how they're barbarians, and how their lives mean nothing to the Shi'ar. Xavier still objects, and asks Admiral Samadar whether he truly wants to go against Charles' lawful decree. Lord Chancellor Araki confirms Charles' claims and grants the X-Men some leeway, 24 hours, to try their own approach in finding and liberating Lilandra. And as a guarantee, he will require 2 of Xavier's students as temporary hostages. Xavier asks if that's really necessary and if Araki doubts Charles' words. Araki responds by saying, "These are dangerous times and he trusts nothing and no one." Charles asks Cyclops first and later Storm for their input in these matters. Storm notices this and thinks to herself precisely that which she and Cyclops had been talking about earlier regarding her position as a team leader. The decision is made and they decide that Nightcrawler and Kitty will take roles as hostages. While they say their goodbyes, Xavier mindlinks with Kitty and telepathically info dumps everything Charles knows about the Shi'ar in Kitty's mind. This sudden flux of data overwhelms Kitty and she faints due to it. Xavier telepathically tells Kurt that he has a task in mind for the 2 of them. Nightcrawler responds by saying Charles can count on him and tells them goodbye, while the X-Men are being transported back home. With the mansion being totally destroyed by the Sea-Tree, Xavier is shocked by seeing the mansion in the state it is in. The X-Men regroup in a nearby Avengers mansion. They wanted to ask the Avengers for their help with the current threat facing humanity, but they find only the newest member Tigra and the Avengers' butler Jarvis. The rest of the Avenger members are apparently currently busy. The X-Men also reach out to the Fantastic Four, but they seem to not be available either. Wolverine and Colossus, in the company of Tigra, are discussing how they're wasting time looking for help, and that they're on their own as usual. Colossus tells Wolverine that they're at least on Earth and among friends, unlike Kitty and Kurt. Tigra tries to cheer them up, and Wolverine pretty much makes clear that he's not in the mood to joke around. And the two end up in a little fight with Colossus in the middle, right as they're being joined by the rest of the X-Men and Jarvis. Cyclops comments on Tigra and Wolverine's behavior, while Jarvis brings some tea and sandwiches as he comments on the professor's not looking so good. Jarvis, being worried, urges Charles to get some rest. Xavier says that he'll be alright and he's mostly worn out due to having tried to establish contact with Lilandra. He says that this was anticipated by their unknown enemies and that he ended up in a psionic ambush, which he barely managed to escape. He did, however, manage to get a rough location fixed on Lilandra. She appears to be in New York as well. Charles mentions he will give it another try once he's more rested up, and he asks where Corsair is, because he would like to ask him some questions. Wolverine responds by saying that Corsair and Storm are both apparently not in the Avengers Mansion right now. At this moment we switch over to Kitty and Kurt. Kitty is pretty much overwhelmed by the sights she has from one of the observation posts aboard the Shi'ar ship. They have a small talk about how they must do their best in their part of helping saving the Earth from the current Shi'ar threat. Kurt notices Kitty is shivering and asks her why she has not changed into something else than a bathing suit. Kitty takes Nightcrawler to one of the devices the Shi'ar have on board, which makes clothes. Nightcrawler is pleased to see that Kitty is taking their imprisonment well, and Kitty responds by saying that while the Shi'ar think Kitty is playing dress up with the new toy she received, she's actually been using Professor X's knowledge dump to tap into the Shi'ar computer systems. She also mentions that with that knowledge, access to the computers, and both their mutant ability to teleport anywhere and phase through walls and objects, they can basically do anything. Then we switch to Corsair and Storm walking around in New York City. Corsair mentions how everything's changed since he's last been on Earth. Yet how everything seems so outdated compared to what he's seen across the galaxy as a starjammer, and that his homeworld isn't his world anymore. Storm responds by saying how she's heard similar sentiments from Colossus, being a farm boy and now an X-Men, and how it would be hard for him to go back to his old way of life, and how that probably goes for all the X-Men. Corsair then continues about how Cyclops was right in saying that Corsair should have returned for his sons, and how he died inside after his wife and their mother, Catherine Ann, died. Storm mentions to Corsair that Cyclops would understand how he felt, to which Corsair responds that no, he would not, since you would have to have lived through a situation like that to be able to understand it. Corsair then asks about why Jean Grey, the former X-Men and lover of Cyclops named Phoenix, isn't there with them. To Corsair's surprise, Storm tells him that Jean's dead. He instantly feels sorry for Scott and asks how this has happened. We see some sort of ray gun being aimed at Corsair from a construction site. We see a conversation between two figures about how they could instantly take out Corsair and Storm. One of the alien figures mentions how they seem like prime specimen, fit for the mother of us all, and how destroying them seems like a waste. The other figure warns the alien with the gun how Corsair and Storm are dangerous and probably even to the mother. They have a short discussion about their allegiance and about respecting and fearing the powers of both Storm and Corsair. One of them goes airborne, while the one with the gun shouts, "The Brood fear nothing," while firing the gun. Apparently the gun, called a Psy-Scream, has an hallucinogenic effect on Storm and Corsair, drawing out their subconscious biggest hates and fears, while they are being attacked by the second figure who turns out to be DEATHBIRD, who proclaims herself the new Empress of the Shi'ar. DEATHBIRD gets shot out of the sky by Cyclops' I-beam, who just arrived on the scene, together with Tigra, Professor X, Wolverine, and Colossus. While DEATHBIRD falls, she is being intercepted by Tigra, who thinks she is fully aware of how dangerous DEATHBIRD is. She jokes around about cats and birds, but DEATHBIRD is not impressed. They fight mid-air, and Tigra realizes she is out of her league. DEATHBIRD initiates another attack of an energy bolt and aims it at Professor X. Colossus jumps in the way and his skin reflects the energy blast into a nearby car. The owner of the car is calling the police. Cyclops and Professor X decide on tactics how to deal with DEATHBIRD. Scott keeps blasting his I-beams and DEATHBIRD takes cover in the construction site. Storm and Corsair, still under the influence of the Psy-Scream, have started attacking each other. They are being separated by Cyclops and Colossus, while Corsair's anger focuses on Cyclops because he thinks Cyclops to be the Shi'ar Emperor who killed his wife. While Cyclops is being strangled by Corsair, Professor X uses his mutant ability to enter both Corsair and Storm's minds and counter the Psy-Scream's effects. Apparently this seems to be a whole lot easier than it actually was. While father and son gather their bearings, Scott informs Corsair that he and Storm had been attacked by DEATHBIRD and the alien with his ray gun. Corsair mentions how DEATHBIRD is precisely the reason he came to Earth, since he learned she seems to be the guiding force behind the rebellion against Majestrix Salandra. Storm and Corsair, both not liking the fact their minds have been abused, immediately initiated pursuit. The Brood alien observed how Charles Xavier is the leader and the telepath and is curious how the Psi Scream would affect Professor X. At that moment, the Brood is being confronted by Wolverine, who just popped his adamantium claws. A short one-sided fight ensues and we see the ray gun drop down, as it is being caught by yet another Brood. The gun is being fired at Storm, and she gets snared by some kind of tangle web, which is apparently part of the gun's arsenal. Storm stays in the air, even though she's ensnared, because her mutant abilities manipulate all weather, and she doesn't need her limbs to conjure up a wind. However, being ensnared causes Storm to lose focus due to her claustrophobia. At that moment, another sniper presents himself, shooting another gun at Professor X. Once again, Colossus instinctively jumps in between, but this time it's by a yet again different material. It's some kind of small acid bomb which is burning through Colossus's uniform, and also apparently his metal skin. Colossus mentions how it burns, and Xavier uses his psi power to help Colossus deal with the pain. Cyclops, being a tactician, notices how the two shots took out two X-Men. He tells Tigra to dive for Storm and swing her to Wolverine, who releases Storm from her entrapment, who in turn saves Tigra from a high fall. Returning to the ground, Storm uses her weather manipulation powers to vaporize the acid on Colossus' chest with a lightning bolt and to wash it away with a monsoon. Colossus is thankful for the help and mentions that he will join the battle as soon as he's recovered. Cyclops dismisses him and tells him to stay with Charles and to take care of him, while the rest of them engage DEATHBIRD and her henchmen. Meanwhile, we see Wolverine fighting with another member of the Brood. He had been hunting the snipers in the construction site, leading him towards the basement, where he had also seen Corsair go. Corsair happens to find himself in a confrontation of firearms with several Brood, down in the basement. The X-Men and Tigra arrive just in time, as father and son, Corsair and Cyclops, share a moment of reconciliation. The X-Men and Tigra arm themselves with alien weaponry and unleash their firepower. When the dust settles, they are confronted by DEATHBIRD, who is holding Professor X hostage. She threatens to hurt Charles unless the X-Men stand down. They do so and DEATHBIRD throws one of her exploding javelins, at which time a starship, which was being camouflaged by the construction site, launches itself into space, with the whole construction site collapsing in on itself, with the X-Men being covered by the debris. They all are working towards a way out, apart from Storm, who once again is overcome by a claustrophobic fear of being buried alive. Cyclops blasts them away clear, and they fan out to find Colossus, since they didn't know what happened with him when Professor X got taken hostage by DEATHBIRD. They find him lying on the ground with one of DEATHBIRD's javelins pierced through his back, all the way through his chest. At that time, while the X-Men are worried about Pilter's health and they're calling out for someone to call an ambulance, the X-Men are being put under arrest by the New York Police Department. Thanks for watching.